Thanks, Kevin. This may sound very strange to a lot of people, but it's something I have to share. I was specifically told to share it with Kevin, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm talking about what the Lord has told me and directed me what to do. And people say, "Who are you?" And I said, on my own, I'm nobody. But I said, the Lord has used me that way and continues to use me again to bring glory to Him. If you turn on television or radio at the moment, you don't have to ask, what's the problem out there? It's worldwide, from lockdown to people dying, to people virus here and there. Confusion all the way, total confusion. There's no one has any expert knowledge, and they're different in their opinions. And when we see confusion on a wide scale, there's only one source of that confusion. Satan is the one that brings confusion. Jesus says, I came that you might have life in all its fullness. He came to kill, to steal and destroy. So you needn't be an expert to look around and say, well, this is not life in all its fullness. This is killing, stealing and destroying. So we go back to the source. The source of what we see now is coming from hell, coming from the enemy. And I said, I saw, the last World War and the ones before that and others, when nation was fighting nation. And I said, there was, car scares, all these things. This is totally different. There's no nation fighting nation at all. I said, they're all of one accord in the sense they're all being attacked. And I believe, I said, that's the time we're in. And I said, you go back, it's a battle. This battle took place in heaven a long time ago, when Satan got too proud and his angels. And the battle was in heaven, and they threw him out. He was expelled, thrown out, down here to earth. Michael the archangel, and he threw him out. And what we're seeing now is a continuation of the battle between Satan and then people down here. Until people start recognizing that, recognizing the source. And when you recognize the source, then there's only one cure for it. And the only one can sort that out is prayer. And the only way you can do that by is prayer. It's not going to happen by injection, it's not going to happen by this, that. It's not, and that's the way it's going to happen. So that brings us back to the stage of prayer. Nobody prays anymore, almost nobody. So where do we go from here? Jesus said, he says about he says what was it he said, give me a recall now, Lord, he said, I'll come to me on you in a minute again, yes sir. So, and here we move on. So that's what we're looking at now. And we're looking at this and how do we do it? And I said, prayer is the only source. Prayer has the only other way. And I said, it's still the way. And the battle is still going on between heaven and hell. And of course, we are in the battleground, and hurt and pain and sickness and fear and all kinds of things are thrown in the battle until we start to recognise that and get the focus first, and then we know we follow on what to do. Jesus said then, he said, on a personal basis, and that works on a bigger basis as well. And he says, if you speak to the mountain in your life, if you speak to the mountain in your life and cast it into the sea, and not doubt in your heart, it'll have to fall into the sea. He was talking about individual mountains, but now he said we're talking about, global mountain. So it affects everybody now, falling into the sea. And when we think about, when I think about a mountain falling into the sea, initially I think it's a great big mountain and starts sliding into the sea. That's not what he's talking about. That's not what he meant at all. People understood mountains and things, and he just spoke about, visual things and give you an idea of a parable. What he's talking about is stuff that's piled up and piled up and piled up and piled up. War, hurt, pain, everything is piled up there. And then he says, and it's piled up and it's ready to, so we have to lock everybody up in case the mountain falls on us. Lock us up and all this. Instead of saying, because it's got higher now, it's now time to knock it down. It comes both ways when it gets high, and then he said, the mountain will fall into the sea. It won't just slip down gently in as an answer. It will fall into the sea. And again, my understanding is that the bigger the mountain, the bigger the impact, the bigger the splash. And I said, when it falls into the sea, and it'll create ripples right across the world. It'll bring, I don't know what you call it. Anyhow, ripples right across the world. And this is, we're talking worldwide all the time now. And you fall into the sea. And not out in your heart. And then I say, what in the name of God could a few people like us do about that? Jesus himself said, when he was doing things and there wasn't money, he says, if I ask my Father, he'll give me even a legion of angels. Well, if you and me, and I pray, if we ask him, he'll send us a legion of angels. Okay? That's his promise. Yep. Send a legion of angels. And they will take place. And again, back to the little white book which Brother Francis says, he talks about, he says, what I bind on earth is bound in heaven, and what I loose on earth is loose in heaven. Therefore I loose angels to go now and bring this, that, and the other thing. So what we do, we bind this mountain here, and then we loose the angels to go and take care of it. That makes sense?
Totally.
Yeah. I said, so we're not on our own. We have the whole court of God, the whole court behind us. They said, we don't have the people, but I said, I believe when people begin to understand, more people will come on board, and then the other people walk away. Which is the source, the root, and the cure. And then he says, what he says, if the mountain, if you speak to the mountain, and you tell the mountain to fall into the sea. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how Jesus prayed. He spoke to the mountain, wherever it was. They were in the boat, and the boys were saying, we'll be drowned. And they woke him up, and he says, be still, be calm. Immediately it was calm. He spoke to the problem. every place he went, every place he ministered, he spoke exactly to the problem. He didn't do what we call prayer. He says, deaf and dumb spirit, come out of him. He says, take up your bed and walk. Every place he spoke. And that's how we should pray. That's how we speak to the problem in Jesus' name, and it has to work. Instead of running off saying prayer, that doesn't work. So I said, we back then, so you speak to the mountain and you tell it to fall into the sea. And the first thing in human says, how could you make a mountain fall into the sea? He says, I'm God. He says, there'll be no mountains out of me, I'm God. He says, you do what I tell you, and I do my part. So I said, so we don't need a crowd, and we even saying the other way, where 3 or 4 are gathered, we don't need it. So the less you have, so long as you have no unbelief in the place. If you have 3 or 4 gathering, praying, I said, the enemy will not touch that. So I said, it's back then, I said, this is caused exactly, I said, by the enemy. Now, when we go back to earlier, when people started being locked down and all this other kind of stuff, and no war, no, I mean, all of a sudden, everybody in the one room, you shut up, you can't go, you can't talk to anyone, you can't wear this and that. Like, when you look at it's ridiculous. And I said, well, that's there, visible, I said, and every government, every official agrees, every cop, so I said, like, he has that space here. Now, when you go back to this, as this lockdown was coming in, I was praying, and I went back to kind of stuff, and I heard and saw Michael the Archangel, and he put his hand up to the Lord, and I knew, he said, right, Michael, he says, can I lock him in? He says, not yet. He says, the first thing that it's going to be in 2 stages. You'll have to lock him down, and later you'll lock him into the fiery flame. So when you lock him down, he says, when the time comes, when you lock him down, he says, that you lock down the virus, and they're able to spread any further, and lock him down. And then he says, later he says, at the next stage, there's another stage coming after this, and then he said, you lock them up. Okay, I said, that's the final one. So I believe when what we were talking about bringing the angels prayer, he'll cause, Michael, to lock these fellas down and lock down the virus in some way. I don't know. So I said, so that's basically clear. But it's just get the focus, get the answer to it, and do. Well, what's our role? Our role is to advise to loose the angels, and the angels can only come as we loose them. Okay, and it says, and we have authority to bind and loose. We have authority to bind Satan. We have authority to loose, and let them do the battle. Now, I believe also, it's not just as simple as I say. We'd need little groups here and there, encourage them to pray at a certain time at night. Well, we're praying tonight now for whoever it is. Little groups or whatever, yeah. So you're pulling in different people and beginning to see, encouragement. But the whole focus of that is, I said, otherwise I said, the place is in chaos. It's chaotic. It's like, no, I mean, it's just lost it, totally lost it. I said, and fellas coming out to me, you can't move here and you can't move that. And now, you go back then to the whole area of this mask. I don't know what this is about. And this virus, obviously I don't know what I said. to me, it looks like, I said, what they're breathing, I know they're taking it, what they're breathing in is foul air and they bring it into the vipers. That's my understanding. And I said, you know, and I said, they're breathing that in all the time. And I said, you know, and because we've poisoned the air and this is what's coming down, this is what we're breathing. And I saw there recently where these is it ventilators or, yeah, ventilators, made a comment saying 88% of those on ventilators die. So it's all breathing. It's all breathing. And yet it's only this because, well, what are you breathing? It's such a breathing in. That's it. And I said, till we start to clear that breathing in. Okay, the lockdown is probably doing something now by taking the stuff off the road. So they'll be saying, oh, the lockdown worked. But I think the lockdown is working not because of you're locked up, but because these things are, you know, the air is clearing. And the evidence is there, we're starting to clear. We see it ourselves with our own eyes. I said, you know, from the Himalayas and all these places, I said, and you can see that's the improvement that's come, and there's 20% improvement in a short time. And it could not come because people couldn't agree until they all got hit with the one thing. Now, at least it's brought people all together in one sense, you know. Now I said, there's what the Lord is saying to me. I said, I said, no, because this, now I was around, I said, during the war when there was no cars on the road. So, like, there was none of this chaotic stuff. We used to play with skittles on the road and everything else. There was 4 cars in our village. The priest, the doctors and 2 merchants. That was it. Everything else was gone. And I remember the first car I ever saw was about 1932. It was a Model T. And it got stuck on the side, we pulled in the side of the road over near Timahoe. And I said, every young fella, not every young fella, everyone in the place were going on bikes to see this car. Yeah, I understand. No, it was before the Eucharistic Congress was 1932. And we went with these young fellas all around it. And I said, this Model T. Like, totally. I said, only that length ago. I said, Model T, I don't know where it got stuck. Probably got run out, I don't know what happened. Just pulled in on the cross margin. And I know we went around it and looked all around it and everyone, it's been all the kids with it. And someone found a hacksaw blade. And then, you know, they brought this hacksaw blade and brought with them. And we came up further up along the road to Tom Dunn's, where Tom's well was to get a drink. And Tom was a bachelor, and he had a whole lot of thistles that he wanted to see how high they'd grow. And so the lads going with the hacksaw cut down his thistles. Oh, the pups that cut down my thistles. Imagine, like, that's only in my lifetime. And I said, ration and everything, and there was none of this confusion like we have now. It's a different battle. It's between heaven and hell. I said, the only one, when that's going on. And God bless these health experts. They don't know. They're not able to do it. Can't do it. But I said, it's all about the breathing and what we're breathing in. And I believe it's only when we clear the air totally that we're going to, then we'll see it. Okay. And about this distance, you know, I don't know, I say you have to keep a certain distance. But to me, like then I say, like virus, I don't know what virus is, but it's only able to travel a certain distance in this polluted stuff. Okay, no, that's mine. And if that's right, the first thing you'll see is as the pollution dies down, distance will become, you know, people be able to move, change the distance. Now, so That was it. He said, talk to Kevin, tell Kevin, myself and Edie, sit down and have a little chat and prayer and take it on from there. And he said, again, he won't leave you on your own, he'll lead you here and there, this, that and the other thing. So I said, well, I said, when I guess I said, it's not pawning it off, please, I mean, I only share it where, firstly, I only share it where I'm grateful, but I also share it on who people will hear it. I've met so many, oh, that's grand, and what did he more say? Gone, you see, I know that you take it on board, and he takes it on board, and you sit down and walk along, and he'd speak to both of you. Now that's one thing. And the other thing he said, like, and I don't understand this, but he said, stuff that I'm telling you, pass it on to Kevin. And you take Kevin will take it on board. And he says, when you're going on, he says, I keep that door open to Kevin. Now whether that's the prophetic gift or how, will he keep that door open?
Okay, we'll take that.
And?
We'll take that.
No. Well, he's gone now and he said, no, and he said, I keep that door open. No, so that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
What sense that makes to people, I don't know, but I said,
Um,
all you can do is tell them.